This is One-on-One. Stephanie Wall is Northeast Community Development Manager at Wells Fargo. How you doing?
I'm good.
You're here to talk about a program called Wells Fargo CityLIFT. Mm-hmm. CityLIFT, talk about that. What is it?
So it's a program that Wells Fargo developed to support sustainable home ownership in a variety of different markets across the country.
How does that happen? Make it specific, because as we're putting up information, this is very valuable information for people who say, hey, wait a minute, I want in on this.
Right.
What is it? How does it work?
So it primarily is a down payment assistance program. It focuses on potential homeowners who are mortgage ready, could be in a home, but don't have the resources for the down payment. And so it focuses on a city limit type of scenario where we just wrapped up one in Baltimore. We're about to release one in New Jersey and New York. It focuses on city limits where individuals...
What does that mean, city limits?
So, for example, Newark city limits.
Yes.
And so individuals that can register and become qualified for the down payment assistance will look to be buying in Newark. And so you get the support of the down payment assistance dollars with the purchase happening in a relatively small geography versus it being diluted if the geography were larger.
So you really try to focus in areas where people traditionally and historically, Stephanie, have had a very hard time having the money, the resources to have that down payment.
Well, it's cross-cutting because it's not limited to who the homeowner is, with the exception of there being an income limit up to 120% of area and median income. So
right.
In Newark, that's almost $100,000 for a family of four. So it runs the range. It's meant to be homeownership across the board. Right. That impacts neighborhood stabilization.
It has to be a primary home, though.
It has to be a primary. You can be moving out of another location into the city. But if you're moving out of a house, you have to sell that one before you move into that location. It's not for investors. It's meant to be for homeowners. The down payment assistance grant is a 5-year forgivable grant.
What does that mean?
It means that 20% of that grant goes away each year for 5 years. The intention is to keep the homeowner in the home. So we want sustainable home ownership, not just moving into a home and moving back out a year later.
What has been the response to date? It
has been a sellout. It's incredible. We've met an unbelievable amount of diverse individuals who have utilized this. Great testimonials. It's an incredible opportunity. In all the years I've been in community development, I have never seen a $15,000 down payment grant opportunity. And it can be layered with local employer-assisted down payment programs.
Make that real for us. Give us a for instance.
So some large employers like hospitals, universities are looking to have their employees live close to where they work.
Right.
And so they offer some sort of a grant that might be matched by a city, or it might just be their own grant if that individual looks to buy in that particular neighborhood or area of the city. So that can be layered on top of, in the case of New Jersey, $15,000 for down payment. Unbelievable.
I'm curious about this. Why is there such a sense of responsibility about, quote, community building?
I think Wells Fargo does a lot of work in the communities across this country. It's well known that we could not do well if the community did not do well. We have a commitment to restabilization. With the foreclosure crisis, there's a lot of risk in our neighborhoods. And so we've done a lot of work in the home preservation space, trying to keep people in their homes, in their mortgages. The flip or the complement to that is the home ownership piece. So the people that are there, you want to keep in their homes. All of those other available housing units, you want to get new homeowners in and stabilize the neighborhood. And so that's really, it's the combination of those two efforts that really make a difference and really is sustainable.
Some folks watching who may be skeptical of banks, could you imagine that possibility? You're laughing. Can you imagine that possibility?
I can imagine that possibility.
Someone says, okay, well, they're just trying to get people to get more mortgages with their bank, you say.
So the end mortgage does not need to be Wells Fargo. It can be.
I don't see how that works.
So the events where we do a LIFT event, the customer registers online, they show up at the event, they sit down with one of our home mortgage consultants to get pre-qualified, or if they have a pre-qualification from another institution, they can bring it with them. and then they get qualified for the down payment, and then they go look for a home, essentially. And so the end mortgage can be Wells Fargo, or it could be...
It could be a competitor.
Yep.
That doesn't matter.
And it has been. In some cases, absolutely. This is Wells Fargo's commitment to restabilization in our communities. Period. End of story.
Okay, so in terms of the inventory, I want to be clear on this, because I want to make sure if people follow up on this, they know what is possible and what isn't. In terms of the inventory of homes that are available to people, what's doable, what's not? I mean, what can you try to purchase and what can't you based on what?
So it's really based on your income limit, so up to 120% of area median income, but then what you're qualified for, right? So you sit down with a mortgage consultant and they pre-qualify you for a certain amount of dollars.
Okay, so it's an amount. It's not, you say, I'm looking at a certain house, you go, I like that house, and someone says, well, that house is $1 million.
Right. You have to be pre-qualified to purchase it, of course. And so that's all based on affordability. So whether or not an individual comes to the event and is pre-qualified by a home mortgage consultant with Wells Fargo, or if they have it from another institution, it's all being they're all being pre-qualified on affordability so that they can in fact afford that home. We've found in many cases the sweet spot is somewhere north of 150,000, maybe 200,000, depending on the neighborhood or the city that we're in. That seems to be, what we're seeing the most as far as attending these events.
Okay, the other part I'm curious about here is for people, is this often first time?
It's both.
It's sometimes first time homeowners, but also people who are going from where they are to another place.
Correct.
But I'm curious, stay on the first time homeowners. Stephanie, for a lot of folks, how hard is it to make that adjustment financially as well as in terms of your mindset to be a first-time homeowner, particularly in these incredibly difficult economic times?
So big transition from always having a landlord, right?
That's what I'm getting
to being the landlord.
Right. From renter to hey,
owner.
I'm responsible for all of it.
Right.
You don't go knocking on the landlord's door. You don't go calling the landlord. It's you.
So there is a home buyer counseling component to this that is a requirement. And so for the individuals who participate, get pre-qualified for a mortgage, get approved for their down payment assistance, they must participate in 8 hours of face-to-face home buyer education. They must complete that as part
Home
of
buyer education?
Correct. So what that is the discussion with the homeowner around what it means to own a home, what you'll need to understand, and it's the counseling element, I think, that makes those situations much more successful. So in the homeownership world, if you talk to individuals who have had counseling prior to actually being a homeowner, very often they have great success. The percentages are very high. Versus folks who make that transition from renter to buyer and never have a conversation with anyone, and then the hot water heater breaks.
Right.
And
What do I do now?
And it could really be a problem. And so the homeownership counseling, the home buyer counseling piece is a huge component. And I think what will make this very successful over time.
Where do folks get that information? We only have a few seconds left. Where would folks get that information?
So all that information is on the website.
It is. So the website that we've been putting up, people can get that information.
All the details.
By the way, before I let you out of here, how rewarding is this for you? You've been doing this kind of work for a long time. What's it like for you?
Unbelievable. And I think it's one of the key programs that is restabilizing these neighborhoods that have been impacted by vacant and foreclosed housing and the foreclosure crisis. It's been very, very difficult we've been doing a lot of this work since 2008, 2009. So it's been a long time, and it's great success story, very exciting, great testimonials. Hope to do a lot more of it.
Well, it's one thing to talk about foreclosures. It's nice to talk about a positive story.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stephanie Wall.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Fedway Associates, Inc., the Russell Berry Foundation, Cone Resnick, New Jersey Natural Gas, Verizon Communications, and by the law firm of Gibbons PC. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger and NJ.com. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System.